Former child star Elijah Wood says Hollywood has a seedy underbelly of child and that those responsible are being protected by the entertainment industry elite.
I can tell you that the #1 problem in Hollywood was and is and always will be.
Nobody talks about.
It's the big secret.
And it's widespread?
Oh yeah. I was surrounded by them. You freeze. You're in shock. I mean, children aren't supposed to handle that sort of stuff.
You know, Hollywood is pretty much the epicenter of entertainment. It's where we get our favorite movies, TV shows, and where some of our most beloved stars shine. But let's not kid ourselves. Beneath all that glitz and glamour, there's a seriously dark side. One of the parts about Hollywood is how it exploits young talents. We've all heard those horror stories about young actors being and taken advantage of by the industry bigwigs. And it's not just rumors. These things really happen. Take Opr Winfrey, for example. Some people claim she's part of this elite group that allows such terrible behavior to continue. What's really frustrating, though, is how these stories are often brushed off or not given the attention they deserve. Feldman is a prime example. This guy has been speaking out for years about the he and his friend Corey Haim suffered when they were just kids in the industry, but his claims were often ignored or not taken seriously. Feldman has repeatedly said that he and Haim were as young actors. In interviews, he's opened up about how terrifying it was, saying that kids are scared and that the people who did this to him were people he thought were his friends.
Alex Hudgens.
Why didn't you
Kids
come
are
forward
scared.
then?
You know, say that the two people that did it to me were both close friends of mine, or so I thought.
Feldman claims that Haim had it even than he did. In his book, Choreography, Feldman alleges that Haim was worded on the set of the 1986 film Lucas. Just a year later, their famous film, The Lost Boys, came out. According to Feldman, it was during the filming of The Lost Boys that both he and Haim experienced more Feldman insists that this wasn't a well-kept secret. A lot of people knew what was going on, but chose to stay silent.
It was when we were both on the set of Lost Boys that, you know, things were happening to both of us.
Or did they know and they just weren't doing anything about it?
I mean, I know he told a lot of people. That's the thing that's so upsetting to me. It's not like it's just me that knows this story.
Other people know.
A lot of people know.
In 2013, Feldman appeared on The View and was adamant that the perpetrators were still out there, continuing their behavior.
They're still out there, and they're some of the richest, most powerful people in this business.
But he said he couldn't name names because of California's statute of limitations laws. Feldman even gave specific examples of how these operated, like how they would single out better-looking younger kids and take them to after parties where unspeakable things happened.
They would pull away the better-looking younger kids and keep them for their own after party, and it would turn into a pool party. And then they'd have their rules. Oh, there's no swimsuits on in the pool.
Now, another person who has backed up Feldman's claims is Elijah Wood. In an interview with the Sunday Times, he dropped some serious truth bombs about the prevalence of in Hollywood. Wood didn't hold back, saying, "There are a lot of vipers in this industry, people who only have their own interests in mind." He pointed out the disturbing reality that victims often can't speak as loudly as the powerful people harming them. Wood described it as a tragic attempt to reveal what's happening to innocent people who get squashed while their lives are irreparably damaged. Wood went on to explain that if you're innocent and don't know much about the world, you're eager to succeed, which makes you easy prey for those with parasitic interests. Thankfully, Wood credits his mother, Deborah, for protecting him from such situations. He wasn't a victim because she kept him safe from the industry's darker side. However, he noted that even as an adult, he's been led down dark paths, realizing that these horrible things are likely still happening. What Wood shared aligns perfectly with what Feldman has been saying for years. Feldman also highlighted a disturbing pattern we've seen with powerful figures like Harvey Weinstein. According to Feldman, whenever someone tries to expose a big name with a lot of money and power, it's the accuser who ends up looking bad, not the perpetrator.
From what I've seen, every time somebody tries to bring up a public name and they have a lot of money and power and a publicity machine behind them, the person who does the accusing is the one that ends up looking bad.
And speaking of Harvey Weinstein, if you're not clued in on the gross stuff he's been accused of, we'll get into that pretty soon. But one thing that's raising eyebrows is the company he kept. Sure, karma has finally caught up to Harvey, but what about his friends? People are saying there's no way his close buddies didn't know what he was was up to. Maybe they were even part of it. One of Weinstein's BFFs who's getting a lot of side-eye these days is Opr Winfrey. Let's talk about her show for a minute. For decades, Opr was on TV, introducing all kinds of characters to her audience. Some were legit, but others were seriously questionable. She had everything from self-proclaimed miracle workers to straight-up criminals parading across her stage. Opr always spun it like she was shedding light on taboo topics and helping out the regular folks tuning in. But as time went on, it became pretty clear that Opr's main focus was ratings. She'd bring on these sketchy characters, from con artists to people claiming they had superpowers, all in the name of entertainment. Some of these guests were downright despicable. Take John of God, for instance. This guy appeared on Opr's show and was praised for his so-called healing powers. Fast forward a bit, and he's now serving nearly 500 years in prison for some serious crimes.
Sure would ever happen. One of the most famous spiritual healers in the world rarely talks to anyone on camera. John of God agreed to sit down with me under a mango tree on the grounds of the casa.
Let's dive in a bit. In December 2018, allegations of A by John of God, whose real name is João Teixeira de Faria, were put forward by 12 women. The number of claims led to the prosecution office of the state of Goiás creating an email address and phone line to receive all accusations towards him. In 30 hours, over 200 complaints were received from 9 different Brazilian states and 2 claims from abroad. Claims were reported by the prosecution's office as having potential to be the biggest SEX scandal in the history of Brazil, overwhelming the Roger Abdelmasek case. Claims included the alleged A of victims as young as 14 years old, as well as a woman who revealed having been AED for 3 days. On the 11th of December, 4 days after the Conversa com Bial show, the number of SA complaints against Faria had reached 206, prompting him to limit his appointments at Casa Dom Inácio de Loyola. Questioned by reporters, he simply said, "I'm innocent," and walked away. On 12th of December, the public prosecutor of Goiás called for the arrest of Faria. On the 16th of December, Faria surrendered himself to the police. The number of SA accusations gradually reached 600. The R word occurred from 1986 to 2017. Faria's daughter Dalva supported the accusers, calling her father a monster and alleging that she was beaten and R-worded by him until she ran away when she was 14 years old. Faria was transferred to a hospital from prison in March 2019. On the 19th of December, he was sentenced to 19 years and 4 months for the R-word of 4 women. He is facing additional cases related to 10 SEX crimes. He was released from prison on house arrest when the COVID-19 pandemic struck in early 2020 due to his age and poor health. And OPR gave this guy a platform. Also, remember when OPR gave airtime to Monique's brother Gerald, who's a convicted felon? Yeah, the same brother who spent over a decade in prison for essaying Monique.
I did assault and inappropriately touch my sister in manners that were not comfortable for her. And for that, I apologize. And I'm humbly sorry.
Not only did OPR put him on blast, but she even blindsided Monique by having their parents on the show too. And get this, these were the same parents who didn't believe Monique when she spoke out about what Gerald did to her. But here's where it gets even messier. Monique spilled the tea on the Club Shay Shay podcast, revealing how her parents tried to sell her story to Barbara Walters. And you know what? Barbara shut them down, recognizing they were trying to cash in on Monique's trauma. But OPR? Oh, she jumped at the chance to bring Gerald on her show. And when Monique confronted her about it, all she got was some half-baked apology about if I did something wrong.
And I shared with Oprah Winfrey what we were going through and how I felt. And I was, you trying to balance it out because it's your mother. And I shared that with you. And I shared with her my family and what the dynamic was. And you think that that's just okay? And the way you try to apologize in front of a group of women, if you think I've done anything wrong.
And that's not even the half of it. Monique's also called OPR out for black and trying to swipe her roles. Now, Monique has been on this crusade, calling out Lee Daniels and Opr Winfrey for what she sees as them messing with her career. It's been brewing for years, but recently she dropped some serious tea on Club Shay Shay. Monique drops a bombshell about how OPR allegedly snatched up roles that were meant for her. Like, remember The Butler? Yeah, it was supposed to be hers, or so she says. Lee Daniels apparently offered it to her, but when OPR expressed interest, well, you can guess who ended up with the part.
Mo, at the time I didn't have no power and I didn't have no money. So when Oprah said she wanted it, so who played the lead role in The Butler? Oprah Winfrey.
And it doesn't stop there. Lee Daniels had this biopic in the works about Richard Pryor. And guess who he wanted to play the grandmother? Monique. But lo and behold, OPR swoops in and claims the role for herself. Now, Monique's not saying OPR intentionally stole these parts, but she's definitely raising some eyebrows about the whole situation. She's like, hey, let's sit down and talk about this, because from where she's standing, it's all looking a bit suspect. And let's not forget about how Monique called out OPR for doing Michael Jackson's too. I mean, after the king of pop passed away, OPR decided it was a good idea to give a platform to his accusers, and Monique was not having it. See, back in '93, when MJ was ruling the entertainment world, he agreed to sit down with OPR for an exclusive interview at Neverland. And let me tell you, OPR fired off all sorts of nosy questions, but MJ's star power helped skyrocket her show's global reach. That interview was like pure magic thanks to MJ. So you can imagine why Monique felt it was shady for OPR to wait until MJ was gone to give airtime to his accusers, especially considering these accusers changed their stories multiple times and even admitted to lying under oath.
And this man has been gone for over 10 years. And not only is he gone, he was found not guilty.
But OPR defended herself, saying she felt a responsibility to shed light on the pattern of these kinds of crimes and how the victims feel.
Trying to get people to understand that it's not about one person, that it is about the pattern, it is about the seduction.
But a lot of folks thought OPR was talking out of both sides of her mouth because MJ was never found guilty of any of the stuff he was accused of. And here's where it gets even stickier. While OPR was shining the spotlight on MJ's accusers, her buddy Harvey Weinstein was out here doing some seriously messed up stuff. So how come OPR didn't think about giving a platform to Weinstein's victims? Let's do a quick recap for those not in the loop. Harvey Weinstein, big shot American filmmaker, basically became the poster boy for the hashtag #MeToo movement. You know, that whole wave exposing SA. So rewind 5 years, and what had been the gossip in Hollywood's back alleys finally went public. News broke with these explosive articles, spilling the tea that Weinstein had been messing with and harassing loads of women for like forever. In October 2017, the New York Times and the New Yorker reported that more than a dozen women accused Weinstein of sex harassing, A-ing, or R-wording them. Many other women in the film industry subsequently reported similar experiences with Weinstein, who denied any non-consensual sex. As a result of these allegations, Weinstein was dismissed from his production company, suspended from the British Academy of Film and Television Art, and expelled from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. He also resigned from the Directors Guild of America and was denounced by leading figures in politics whom he had supported. In 2019, the documentary Untouchable was released with interviews from several of his accusers. The New York County District Attorney's Office charged Weinstein with criminal SA, and SEX misconduct for incidents involving 2 separate women on May 25, 2018. He was arrested the same day after surrendering to the New York City Police Department, NYPD, and released after a $1 million bail was posted on his behalf. He surrendered his passport and was required to wear an ankle monitor, with travel being restricted to New York and Connecticut. His lawyer, Benjamin Brafman, said Weinstein would plead not guilty. A trial date was set for January 6, 2020. On that date, Weinstein was also charged in Los Angeles with R-wording one woman and S-ing another in 2013. On June 8, 2022, Weinstein was formally charged by the Metropolitan Police with 2 counts of indecent A against a woman in London between July 31st and August 31st, 1996. After deliberating for 5 days, a jury convicted Weinstein on February 24, 2020, of 2 of 5 criminal charges: 1 count of criminal SA in the 1st degree and 1 count of R in the 3rd degree. The jury found him not guilty regarding SA, which could have led to a life sentence. On July 20th, 2021, Weinstein was flown to Los Angeles and taken to the Twin Towers Correctional Facility. The trial in Los Angeles commenced in October 2022. Weinstein was charged with 11 counts of R, forcible oral copulation, and SEX battery, stemming from alleged acts between 2004 and 2013. He was found guilty of 3 of 7 charges. 4 of the initial 11 charges were dropped on December 19, 2022. Convictions included charges of R, forced oral copulation, and 3rd-degree SEX misconduct. On February 23, 2023, Weinstein was sentenced to 16 years in prison for these convictions. His sentence in California prisons must be served separately from, consecutively to rather than concurrently to, his time served in New York. And who can forget the whole drama behind the Color Purple movie? The accusations were flying fast and furious, from getting lowballed on pay to being left practically starving on set. There were even talks that Opr OPR made them trek to set for crazy long hours every day without any security, and they had to squeeze into the same trailer. But wasn't the budget for The Color Purple like a whopping $100 million? Where did all that cash vanish to? How in the world did OPR sign up to produce a project where these talented black actresses were allegedly treated like second-class citizens? Taraji Henson didn't hold back, spilling the tea about unfair pay and almost walking away from the project, The Color Purple. According to her, it was a real battle for several things, from getting a safe ride with a driver instead of a rental car in Atlanta to just having some grub at rehearsals. The rumors are swirling that OPR may have gone off on Taraji and blamed her for causing The Color Purple to flop miserably at the box office. In case you didn't know, the film barely made half of its $140 million budget despite releasing months ago with a lot of promo. So according to the latest reports, the film already went digital due to its horrible performance at the box office, and all the producers are now supposedly blaming Taraji and all that she said at the promotional tour, causing the movie to fail. Now, when Taraji initially started speaking out and calling out the BS OPR and the producers of the movie put her through, OPR tried to do some damage control, but none of that really worked out. Because according to sources, some Hollywood executives and OPR are already planning to blackball Taraji for making them lose so much money as a result of the bad publicity that she gave the movie with all of her rants about pay inequality. You'd assume that with Taraji, a seasoned pro with more than 2 decades in the game and a trophy case full of awards, fair pay wouldn't be a battle, especially in a flick like The Color Purple, where OPR is wearing the producer hat. But Taraji spilled the tea that OPR didn't exactly go to bat for her or the other leading ladies when it came to the paycheck. According to Taraji, the initial offer was downright disrespectful, and the big shots refused to budge until she laid down the ultimatum of walking away from the whole project. Taraji, a force to be reckoned with, had to throw down to get what she deserved, and Taraji is over it. In a recent heart-to-heart with OPR BFF, Gayle King, Taraji spilled the beans and hinted that she might just throw in the acting towel for good. Why? Because she's straight up tired of the never-ending battle for fair pay.
I'm just tired of working so hard, being gracious at what I do, getting paid a fraction of the cost.
Taraji says every time she smashes through a glass ceiling, it's like she never did it when the paycheck talks come around again. Taraji says she wants to fight for the up-and-coming actresses, be a voice for the next generation, but she's stuck in a loop of not getting what she deserves herself. It's a frustrating cycle, and you can hear the exhaustion in her voice.
And it seems every time I do something and I break another glass ceiling, when it's time to renegotiate, I'm at the bottom again like I never did what I just did, and I'm just tired. I'm tired. And if I can't fight for them coming up behind me, then what am I doing? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, don't apologize.
Now, circling back to what Feldman has been saying, the sad thing is, this problem isn't new. It's been going on for ages. Just take Shirley Temple, for example. Everyone knows the name Shirley Temple, whether you're thinking of the adorable child star or that cherry-flavored mocktail. Shirley Jane Temple was born in Santa Monica, California on April 23, 1928, to a homemaker and a bank employee. When she was just 3 years old, her mom, Gertrude, enrolled her in Meglin's dance school in LA. That's where she got scouted by Charles Lamont, a casting director for Educational Pictures, a studio that doesn't even exist anymore. In 1932, the studio started a series called Baby Burlesques, where little kids, like preschool age, would reenact famous films and current events. Even though there were a bunch of kids in the series, it was obvious that Shirley Temple was the standout star. At just 3 years old, she got a role in her first feature film, The Red-Haired Alibi. Her big break came in May 1934 with Fox Studios' Stand Up and Cheer. By December of that year, she starred in Bright Eyes with James Dunn, a film written just for her. By the end of 1934, she had appeared in 10 movies, including 4 major starring roles. From 1932 to 1949, Temple starred in over 40 films for major studios like RKO, Warner Brothers, 20th Century Fox, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, Paramount, Universal, and the infamous Selznick International Pictures, which has its own set of issues. Between 1935 and 1938, Shirley Temple was the world's top box office star, even beating out Hollywood legend Clark Gable. Despite all her success, it's hard to find anyone who can actually name one of her movies. And there's a reason for that. Her films haven't aged well at all. The overt objectification of the Hollywood's youngest star started the moment she first appeared on screen. Her first credited role was in a baby burlesques film called War Babies, where she played a named Charmaine at just 3 years old. One scene in Bright Eyes shows her singing "On the Good Ship Lollipop" in a very short baby doll dress, being carried and touched by a bunch of grown men. The 1936 film Poor Little Rich Girl is another example, filled with scenes of Temple being fondled by adult men. The whole film is a prime example of how normalized people in early Hollywood. Shirley Temple's arrival in the film industry meant that creeps from all over could indulge their twisted fantasies from the comfort of a movie theater. And when these movies were released on home media, the problem only got worse and more easily hidden. The SCX exploitation of Shirley Temple might have been horrific on screen, but things were so much behind the scenes. During the production of her many films, Temple and her fellow child actors endured an abundance of both physical and SA. In her 1988 book, Child Star, an autobiography, Temple described the Baby Burlesque series as a cynical exploitation of our childish innocence. She also explained that if any of the preschool-aged children misbehaved on set, they were locked in a windowless booth called the punishment box and be forced to sit on a solid block of ice for extended periods of time. Temple was sent to the punishment box several times but claimed it did no lasting damage to her psyche. Temple described these production sets having a very strong present time is money attitude. This led to her being forced to work while injured on multiple occasions, one time working a single day after a serious eardrum operation. In 1940, at the age of 12, Shirley Temple had a meeting with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer producer Arthur Freed, where he exposed himself to her. After seeing her nervously giggle, Freed threw Temple out of his office. This deplorable man would go on to produce wildly successful films. Being a known bold pedo did little to lessen your reputation or professional success in early Hollywood. Years later, at the age of 17, Temple was made a victim again when producer David O. Selznick of Selznick International Pictures attempted to SA her. She was fortunately able to escape this ordeal unscathed, but this was not the last time she would have to deal with the pigs of Hollywood. Temple found herself being a victim to men's twisted fantasies in reviews for her movies as well. Famous British novelist Graham Greene ended up becoming the most infamous of these critics. Referring to her 1936 film, Captain January, Greene wrote, "Her neat and well-developed rump twisted in the tap dance." It's important to note that Temple was 8 years old at the time. In a review for the 1937 film Wee Wee Winky, he referred to the child as wearing short. She is a complete totsy. Watch the way she measures a man with agile studio eyes, with dimpled depravity. Fortunately, Temple and 20th Century Fox were able to successfully sue Greene for libel. However, there is no telling the damage this must have done to that little girl's mind and self-image at the time. But the A didn't stop there. Shirley Temple was also made a victim of A by her viewers. Rumors spread around that she was not in fact a child but a 30-year-old woman posing as a young girl. Her critics would point out her stocky build and adult-like teeth that were actually due to a dental plate that she would wear on set to conceal her tooth gaps. This rumor became so prevalent that when Temple was 10 years old, the Vatican sent over Father Silvio Massante to investigate the claims of her being an adult. Vicious fans would also claim that her famous trademark blonde curls was a wig. She would often get her hair yanked and pulled on by strangers, trying to prove the rumor true. In reality, her ringlet curls were maintained by a torturous nightly process and a weekly vinegar soak that would burn and sting her eyes. It was because of this that Temple found herself wishing she wore a wig. Shirley Temple officially retired from acting in 1950 at the age of 22. She starred in 29 films from the ages of 3 to 10, but only ended up appearing in 10 from the ages of 14, 21. In 1967, Temple began her career as a politician and served as a public servant until 1992. In her later years, she was able to serve as the United States ambassador to Ghana and Czechoslovakia. She also served on the board of directors for major organizations like the United Nations Association, the National Wildlife Federation, Bank of America, and even the Walt Disney Company. In 1998, Temple was honored at the Kennedy Center for her contributions to early film and American culture. It's safe to say that the world grew much kinder to Temple in her later years as opposed to her time as a child star. This whole situation is crazy, but let's know what you think of all this in the comments below, and we'll catch you in the next video.